Good morning and welcome to the January 25th, 2023 Strategic Planning, Information Technology and Transportation Committee meeting. Time is 8:02 and I will call this meeting to order. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the November 30th, 22 meeting.
Motion to approve.
I'm sorry, we need to approve the agenda first. I'm sorry.
Okay. First item on the agenda is the approval agenda. I totally went by that one. You'll have a motion to approve. Okay.
Second.
A second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Next item on the agenda will be the approval of the minutes from the November 30th, 2022 meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Passes 4-0. Next item on our agenda is the wide area RFP with Jay Parker.
Hey, good morning, board members. Thank you for this time this morning. I only have 3 topics to highlight and present today. The first one is our wide area network, and that's really what we call a WAN. Our contract was signed in 2016, expires in June of 2023. At that time, we must have a new contract. So we submitted RFP bids on December 9th. We ended on January the 9th, and then we went through our process of determining the best vendor that would give us both service levels, expandability, and give us the capabilities moving forward with our elementary, middle, and high. This service provider has supported the Union County Public Schools over the last 7 years. They provided 1 gig of data for elementary. It's 5 gig for secondary locations, 1 gig for our central office buildings, also with connectivity. The optics are available to move to 10 gig if needed. The cost is $520,000, which is about a $500,000 savings over the last contract per year. And the E-rate, which is our fines and forfeitures money, federal money, will cover 50% of that. The cost from the district for operations is about $272,000 in the end for this service. And included in the documentation that's uploaded and emailed to you was also our scoring rubric, where we went through a rigorous vetting process of determining everything from our service transition to price to the proposal to the outage, and it comes up with a score. So at this time, I can ask you if you have any questions, and also that my recommendation is to approve Conterra as our wide area vendor for the next 5 years. It has a 2-year option on top of that that's similar to the last contract that allows us to do a fixed price the last 2 years in case there is any increases. But my recommendation is to approve them and move it to the full board.
Thanks, Mr. Parker. I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
So the 520,000, while you said it's about a 50% savings over our last contract, this is
Correct.
Budgeted, right?
It is, yes, sir.
Okay.
This is budgeted and E-rate covers it. The only thing E-rate will not cover is our redundant disaster recovery site, because they won't pay for connectivity, the same connectivity into one of our facilities. They won't pay for 2 lines. They'll pay for 1 end, but they won't pay for 2. So that's the $23,000 that's per year that we must fund by the district for our disaster recovery.
Okay, thank you.
I have 2 questions. There's no really change from what we currently have right now.
That is correct, other than we have burstable capabilities to 10 gig with our optics, but it's the same vendor that we've had the last 7 years, and they have invested about $2 million in infrastructure for reliability and fault tolerant and all the elements that were required to keep our network up and running with a 99.9% uptime.
Okay. And then the second question with the E-rate, have we proposed any changes to get like a secondary site covered or anything?
Yeah, we made all the applications to E-rate back in November, and we got approval for funding our district, and they'll cover 50%. And our only limitation is they won't cover redundant connections into a facility. So E-rate will pay for connectivity into a building that we have our disaster recovery, but they won't cover that secondary connectivity where if all of our networks fail, we're going over to that one connection that's external to this contract.
Okay. All right, does anybody else have any questions?
I do. So as far as like, do we have one data center that's hosting
We
all of
do.
our stuff?
Yes, we do. Everything networks back to our core data center.
So I know, recently I've experienced not with UCPS, but with my current employer, we had an outage and it was due to a fiber line being cut.
Correct.
What is our plan around that? Like stuff coming into the building? I mean, we don't have any failover there, right?
Yeah, directly into the core data center. If it failed, then that would cause an outage and we would have to just activate our disaster recovery areas and point all of our firewalls and our VPNs over to that area. And that's totally outside this contract. It's like having two internet connectivities into your house. If one breaks, we're just going to fault to a whole separate contract, and that would be our sustainability if the data center failed for whatever reason. And over December, we performed a couple disaster recovery exercises where we did the failover. And naturally, you learn through each one of these exercises, but we were able to do it successfully. So I don't see a concern with that. And that secondary line is our sustainability if we do lose the core data center.
Great. Appreciate that. Thank you.
But at each school, if it breaks, it just breaks, right?
Yes, sir.
Those
If a school breaks, we have what we call it. It's almost like a fault tolerant ring. So the network traffic flow goes in one direction. What we'll do is just reverse that traffic flow. So only the site that got the fiber cut would be down at that time. And then we would just resume connectivity to the rest of our district over a reverse network.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for Jay?
No, I'd like to make a motion to approve Conterra and take it to the full board for final approval.
Figure
Second.
out a second. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 4-0, I believe. Next item on the agenda is with Jay Parker also, is the vendor management RFP.
Yes, sir. The visitor management RFP is actually our when you walk into a school, it is our software that tracks visitors to our school. It's currently a DentaKid. They changed the model of their support at the beginning of this year, where they no longer provided on-site partnerships with our schools, and they were reliant on our staff to troubleshoot and install. We had conversations with them at the time. They would not change the model, and I didn't want to put this burden back on our staff for hours of time troubleshooting. So we created an RFP. It actually ended on January the 20th. We just collected the responses. We may or may not be going with the new vendor, with the current vendor, but at least we have competitive bids that will require on-site service and on-site support for our staff. So I just wanted you as an informational to know that this is coming. It may or may not be cost savings for our district, but it will be a better service level and take a burden off of our staff. So this is more of an informational than a referral. I plan to come back to the next SPIT committee meeting with our recommendation and our rubric scoring of that vendor too, but wanted you to be aware of it.
Yeah, thank you. Does anybody have any questions about the visitor management RFP? Okay, hearing none, I will move on to the next item. That is also with Jay. It's the technology update.
Yes, sir. In your board docs and also in the email, I sent our IT roadmap. So we create a district roadmap that expands over 5 to 6 years, depending on the projects in place. And this does not encompass all of our activities and technology services, but some of our large projects, and it creates a milestone map. Everything that is in red has been completed. Everything that is highlighted with some were completed this year, and probably use some of the fund balance to have it done, such as the core data center we refreshed this year. That refreshes all of our servers for 7 years, and it includes our CyberSense digital backups. So all of these have been completed. If you look off into future years, you will see some of the other areas we were able to encompass either with current funding, or we found an avenue or partnership to take care of those. But just wanted you to be aware of our roadmap, where we're headed, and what activities are going on. Currently, we're refreshing all of the staff and instructional laptops in every school. We're approximately 50% complete. Will be done by February 17th at all locations. And then we'll direct our attention to central office. But that's one of the projects that we're on here. Next year will be our 6-12 Chromebooks. So those RFPs will be coming soon for that amount of students in those grade levels.
Mr. Parker, why are we on hold with the smart panel rollout?
If you remember back at the very first year, we used capital funding for smart panel rollouts. And then from then on, Ms. McLam and I partnered and we were able to use ESSER funding. So last year we completed 3 rounds of projection refresh, which we have installed and removed over 1,800 devices of 2,400 classrooms. When the ESSER money ran out, it left us that balance and there was no more ESSER money or capital money for that last 600. But within that last elements are items that may be working that they didn't have a problem with. We replaced the 1,800 defective ones. And if just as a reminder, that replaces the top mounted short throw projectors, the ones that use bulbs and shoot onto a wall. These are replacements that have touch panels and high definition LCDs that you can see with the lights on. So it's a much more effective tool, better. It gives us better options in our room to keep the students engaged.
Do each one of the schools have a cart if that overhead were to go out?
Yes, every one of them that we installed are on mobile rolling carts. And that allows us to do breakouts in rooms or roll them between rooms. But it's also, we have some of the reading breakout areas in our media centers and some of our instructional areas in our media centers. And those can be rolled around too, if needed for a classroom. But it was a major undertaking for our district, but it really is a shining point for us to replace 1,800 or 2,400 classrooms. And these devices are commercial. They're not what you buy at a retail outlet. They're what you see in airports. So the expectancy is 10 years. The warranty on all of them are 5 years. And we looked at many statistics to ensure that we were getting the most reliable and best performing product in our schools.
Great, thank you.
I have a question. So the yellow highlighted, is that like what's currently in process?
Yeah, those are actually the only thing that's currently in process is our the RFP, which we just completed, and the laptop refresh for all our instructors and staff in schools. And we're about 50% through there. The other 2 are done. The CyberSense and Core Data Center, they've been completed for months now. And the other 2 should be completed over the next 30 days.
So what was the yellow supposed to indicate?
The core data room and the CyberSense, we're using fund balance instead of capital money for those 2 items. So I wanted to highlight those and then give you an update on our refresh, as our teachers and instructors have been waiting 5 years for a new device. And that RFP is just a topic we were talking about today.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Parker, I know Chat GPT is making headlines everywhere as an AI tool, and I think it's really going to force us as a district and educators kind of around the world to look at how we instruct and how we assess our students, right? Can you talk a little bit about what the district's done so far with Chat GPT and other AI tools?
It's the Chat GPT is a artificial intelligence module that takes a few words. If you want to write an essay or write a paragraph or a memo, you can go in and just say, please write this memo on these words, and it will give you a 5-paragraph or a 5-page, whatever you indicate, and provide the end result for you at no work. So if a student needed to write a paper, they could go in and write a paper on photosynthesis, and they could just type that word and it would write a 5-page paper for them. What it does with that artificial intelligence is it scans the internet for all the resources out there and it pulls them back and compiles them into one platform. And Microsoft has invested millions and millions of dollars in this artificial intelligence. They're looking at moving forward with this, and it does have an impact because if you ever go to the site, it's always overloaded, and Microsoft wants to adopt it and create some kind of payment plan so that people can use it. But from a technical standpoint, it is amazing. It does some incredible work. It kind of blows your mind when you can type just a few words and it gives you five paragraphs of information without doing any research. So I think that is the growth and that is the leading edge of our artificial intelligence areas now. We have blocked it from within the district for students to use using their issued devices. That does not restrict them from using it outside the district if they want to. The Big 12 CTO that we meet once a month with other districts, they followed the same format. They're blocking them on the district issued devices just from the component of abuse or maybe using it too much while they're in school. We want them to focus on instruction. And so that's why we stopped that and blocked it right now on our firewall.
And Dr. Hillian, I know you may have just joined. We were talking about ChatGPT and what we're doing from a technology standpoint to, embrace what's out there. Just curious what we're doing from an education standpoint. I really think this kind of shifts the paradigm where a teacher can't really just say, hey, write a 5-paragraph essay on this topic, right, and turn it in.
Right.
I think it now has to be write it and present it, right? So at least like they're learning as they're presenting. So is other stuff happening outside of technology to embrace this new technology that's out there?
Yeah, I honestly would have to ask Dr. Rogers and Dr. Tyson about the implications in the classroom. To be honest, I've heard no issues about this from our teachers or principals. They have not mentioned this as a challenge currently. So I would have to get back to the committee on that question with some more details.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Mr.
I
Parker.
think a lot of teachers might not be aware of it also.
Yeah, it is really the cutting edge and most recent impacts into technology and artificial. So it's so new that people are just starting to hear about it. I saw it on the news last night, and it was a review of that artificial intelligence and how it's applied in the classroom.
And I've seen it work. It's truly amazing. Like you literally, like Mr. Parker said, just type in what you want it to do and hit go, and you literally watch as it's being written, and it flows. It's good English, like it's not choppy English. Like it's truly amazing.
It is.
So,
I have a quick
thanks for the
question.
update.
The East and Forest Hills WAN fiber connections,
Yes, sir.
does that affect the current RFP?
No, it's included as a location, and they would just port it over to the new building. Since it's going to that existing facilities, we just move the fiber connection on down the road, but it does not impact our cost or growth in those areas. And we have accounted for the future of using IP phones over desk phones and using a Teams type environment. So that burstability and capabilities there also.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions for Jay?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. With the technology update being done, we will move on to the next item, the transportation update with Cole and Moore.
Hey, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Do have a few things we want to update you on from transportation. Little update on our bus driver staffing, both vacancies and some another issue we've been having with some call outs, and then also give you a smart bus update. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Denton, let him run through that with you.
Good morning, everyone. So we'll start with the bus driver shortage update. Obviously, you hear about it in the news all the time, and we're no different. We're in a little worse shape now than we were when we started school. We have about 19 vacancies, up one from last night. Actually, we had one resign last night. So we're at 19 vacancies, and we have about 15 to 20 call outs per day. As you might imagine, when we have call outs and we never know where they're coming from, trying to scramble to cover those when we already have about 95 planned doubles every day becomes an adventure. And we do have some gaps in coverage from time to time. Our staff has worked heroically. Thank you so much to our drivers and our staff. Shout out to them for managing this whole thing. And there's not a day that goes by we don't think about other ways we can address the bus driver shortage. And we're working with administration now to work on some of those ideas to see if we can somehow improve this. I'm also working with a coalition in North Carolina that was just formed last week. NCASA, the Association of School Administrators, the School Boards Association, DPI, NCPTA, which is Transportation Association, have all come together and Teamsters is also on this group to try to address this issue statewide. So we're working. We've had a couple of meetings so far, and we'll be trying to brainstorm ways we can either change DPI policy to make things easier for us to hire drivers, a DMV policy, get with legislators to better fund bus driver pay. They're just different ideas that we've got about how to do things. So we're working on that very diligently. But it continues to be an issue, and we're very concerned about that because I was hoping it would get better this year, but unfortunately, it has not gotten any better. We'll move to something more exciting, and that would be Smart Bus Update. We have finished phase 1 of our Smart Bus Update with GPS tablets, our parent portal, and our web school assistant all up and running. All of our old business process has been replaced with this new business process technology, and it is working as intended. So we're very pleased with that. We're about 90% done on payroll conversion. It still requires a little bit more manual intervention right now than what we'd like, but that is almost complete as well. Phase 2 is beginning. We are going to be working on some live view cameras. We decided to go with 20 live view cameras so that principals on those buses can pull up those cameras live and be able to view those camera footage immediately and pull it down immediately if they need to. We're also working on development of automated seating charts, and we are working on the student tracking module for Wolf School. We're going to start with that school and see how that goes. So that project, Smart Bus project, has gone extremely well, and we're very, very pleased with the results we've gotten so far. Finally, the Love the Bus Week is February 13th to the 17th, and we're looking forward to celebrating that with all of our staff and bus drivers. Mr. Moore, that completes my report.
All right, thank you, sir. I want to just piggyback on the staffing. We do have some strategies that we're working on in addition to what Mr. Dent referred to try to help retain these drivers. We're seeing that it's not necessarily a monetary thing. A lot of it is job satisfaction, and it's dealing with some discipline. So we've got some strategies that we're working on. We've discussed in cabinet. We'll be discussing at some future principal meetings and also at our AP Academy to reinforce some of those discipline issues that bus drivers are getting burnt out with. We're just seeing it with the call outs that we're getting. We're just seeing tendencies consistent with people that are lacking job satisfaction. We think that may be related to the stresses that go along with driving the bus. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that's our report. We'd be glad to answer any questions.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the payroll conversion? So how does that have anything to do with the Smart Bus Update?
Yes, it does. Payroll is part of the software that we purchased. And the one thing that we had with the old software, it did exactly what we needed for it to do, followed all our business processes, and we were used to using that. When we converted over to the new software, they needed to upgrade it to match some of our business processes and the way we process payroll, the way it integrates with payroll downtown. And we've had to enter payroll a little bit more manually because the vendors had to go back and do some programming to get it up to speed. So we were working with them on that. It's much, much better than what it was. It's going to have some additional features that the old software did not have, which is good. For example, it'll automatically calculate overtime, which the old software did not do that. So we'll be able to have some additional features, but it's just taking a little while and some iterations to get it to where we want it to be for us.
Got it. So it's really more like time tracking versus like the payment execution, right? So it's
correct.
It's tracking driver time and feeding that over to the payroll system, the accounting system.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? So the AP Academy is exactly what?
So we have an AP Academy that our academics department has for assistant principals. So we would participate in that academy and have some discussion about expectations with the support of bus drivers and how it interacts. Bus drivers have a particular contact at each school, whether it's an administrator or a lead person at the school. So we would be utilizing that AP Academy time to reinforce some of these bus discipline issues that maybe we run into that could be causing a lack of job satisfaction.
Yeah, I thought that was advanced placement too. So good
Yeah.
question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I fell into the, to
It's
the,
like, did we create a new academy? What's going on here? And are we busing people there?
Hey, question two with the staffing with our current vendor for substitute teachers. Is there any way we can utilize them for substitute bus drivers?
No, sir, we've actually explored that, and there's a piece of liability that goes along with that. But what they are doing is as they're having these discussions with substitutes, and we've had conversations with our HR department, as they're talking to these substitutes, they're also introducing them to the opportunities of getting their CDL so that they can drive buses. They're not able to recruit the bus drivers themselves, but they can encourage people that are applying to get their CDL.
Yeah, Mr. Helms, the bus drivers must be employees of ours. In order to be covered by tort claims, they have to be employees of ours.
Gotcha.
Is there any way for the next meeting to get a ridership update to actually see where we stand? Because I do see buses, rolling around, but I can't imagine anybody's on them based on the carpool lines that I have to drive through to get to work in the morning. So I'd love to see if anybody's actually on the buses that are rolling. So if we can get an update, that'd be great.
We can do
Mr.
that.
Parker, you're smiling. I
Sure.
think you can relate to what I experience.
I have one more question. And I'm new to this committee, so I apologize if this is a dumb question. The efficiency rating, which, I mean, when I first started paying attention years ago, like that's all about how our budget is, right? In terms of what we get funded. Like, how are we doing with our efficiency rating?
The funding formula has not been used in 3 years. When pandemic started, it all fell apart because the ridership on buses was way down. The number of buses being utilized was way down. We are told this year we'll get 90% of our funding, and the other 10%, they're going to look at a way to distribute it. And that's all we know from DPI about it. Then they're going to run a version of the formula this year. And it's sort of like the Wizard of Oz. They're behind the curtain, pushing and pulling different variables. And I wish there was a better description than that. But it's not been running 3 years. We don't expect it will be a hard, firm number this year. They do plan to resume the formula next year and go back to more normal operations from a DPI funding perspective. But when we have more information about funding, we'll let you know about that. But it should be any time because it's already January and we don't know what we're getting at. So,
Wow.
pretty frustrating, actually.
Thank you so much.
So to add on to Ms. May's question, I mean, I'm assuming from an operational standpoint, we're still functioning as if they were in place and trying to be as efficient as possible, right? So with our routing software, running the least amount of miles, again, I think ridership is and one of the pieces of the formula. So can you just so you're nodding your head. So I'm assuming we're operating as if the old formula was still in place, right?
Well, so think about before the pandemic, we operated 289 school buses. Today we're running 213. We're transporting about 20, if I remember right, this year, we'll go back and confirm this, 21,000 or so students. So we're not quite where we were pre-pandemic as far as the number we transport. We're transporting a lot, and we're doing 95 doubles twice a day. I mean, that's a lot of double runs. So we would anticipate that if they ran the formula, we'd actually be in better shape than we were before the pandemic because we're running so many fewer buses than we were before the pandemic. So I would be very surprised if we weren't in better shape when we're run the formula. But again, I'm not the wizard behind the curtain pulling the levers, so I don't know where it'll come out.
Is that just due to the driver shortage?
It is. We anticipated Mr. Morial, and we got lucky, quite honestly. We targeted a certain number of buses to run coming out of the pandemic. We didn't know how many people were coming back. We just kind of planned for it, and we luckily hit right on, pretty close to where we thought it would be, and we had to park basically a third of our buses, and that's been that's where part of the challenge comes in, because when you're running doubles every day, you can't mess up those doubles because if another driver's out, you can't just pull that driver and have them cover somewhere else. They're already running a double run somewhere else. So that's where part of the complication comes with the shortage of bus drivers.
So are the parked buses utilized at all? Like, are we looking at liquidating any of those if they're not needed? Are they like run in a rotation so they still, stay current and, get the fluid flowing
So we
through?
have an active roster of buses we're using. We have a roster of buses that are sitting. DPI has not given us direction on what they want us to do with those. If we were to sell them, the proceeds would go back to the state because the state provides the bus for us anyhow. So there would not be any windfall for us to sell anything. There's been no direction from DPI on how we're to utilize those buses going forward. Strangely enough, we've been getting replacement buses too. So, that's a move that DPI has endorsed, and we don't order them and pay for them. DPI replaces them based on age and mileage. I guess with the thought at some point we'll add back buses, but with the driver situation like it is, I don't see how we'll be able to add buses back in the near future.
How's the natural gas buses going?
So far, so good. We've got 5 on the road now, and we are getting one more through a grant through the second phase of the Volkswagen grant. So we ordered another bus that was natural gas because we felt like trying to order an electric bus. We'd have to put an infrastructure in out here to do charging and all that. And this technology is still so new. We didn't want to get involved with just one bus like that. So we went ahead and ordered another propane bus to supplement the 5 that we have. So we'll be getting that in sometime, I guess, late this year, early next year.
Okay.
Mr. Dunn, can you remind me, what do we do for fuel this year? Did we pre-purchase for the year again, or are we purchasing as we need it?
We did purchase 152,000 gallons last year. We've not used any of it so far this year because pricing has been below what we paid for it. But it's a 2-year contract, so we can carry it over into next year and use it next year as well. Price has been going back up here recently, so we may decide to take some. We're working with our finance folks as well to make sure that year-end budget, if we need to use some of that fuel and offset some of the costs for this year, we can do that. So it's kind of a wait and see till pricing changes, and or we look at budget in about April to see if we need to do anything with those gallons this year.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Denton or Mr. Moore?
I do not.
No.
Welcome, Mrs. Green, Mrs. May, to the committee. I haven't met you yet, Mrs. Green, but I will look forward to doing that at some point.
Same, thank you.
Well, thank y'all for the update. I appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is our next meeting date is scheduled for February 22nd, 23 at 8 a.m. Is that a Wednesday or a Thursday?
It's the 22nd, and that's a
Wednesday.
It's a
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Ms.
Okay.
Morris,
We
is
might
there
have
any way
some.
we could look at moving this to a Thursday in the future?
Whatever the committee decides, we will, the only issue is that the 2nd and 4th Thursdays of every month are your appeals committees. That would be the only potential conflict. But if you did
What
it at
time does
8,
that start?
yeah, I was gonna say, if you did it at 8, you could probably get done by appeals time at 9.
But if we had appeals, we'd have to do
Be
the
there.
meeting from the appeal
From the
location.
boardroom or
Or at least
something,
I
yeah.
would, because it takes about
Same.
25 minutes to get there.
Yeah, same, because
Yeah.
I would have to go to the appeals, which is tomorrow I have one and
Okay, well, we might have some further discussion, but as for right now, we're scheduled for 22nd if needed. So we'll discuss that some more and see if we can come up with a time that works. The only item I had for the information taken to the full board was the wide area network RFP.
That's correct.
Okay. And with that being said, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We
Thank
are
you,
adjourned.
everyone. Appreciate the update.
Thank
Bye-bye,
you.
guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a
Thank you.
good day.
Bye.
Bye.